You're watching FlashPoint with Brendan McLaughlin.
Welcome back. I'm here with Kevin Beckner. He is going to run against Brian Blair for the countywide District 6 County Commission seat for Hillsborough County. Thanks for being on FlashPoint, Kevin.
Thanks for having me here.
Okay, you grew up in Indiana, Michigan City, Indiana, and you came here about 9 years ago. What kind of work have you done in your young life?
Well, I've been pretty much an entrepreneur my whole entire life. I've owned my own businesses. Ever since I was a small child, I owned different types of businesses and been involved in different things like that. So I've always had the entrepreneur spirit.
And doing professionally right now, what do you do?
Right now, I'm a certified financial planner and have my practice down in Ybor City.
Okay, on your website, you say you're running because the priorities of the commissioners have become disconnected from the priorities of the people of Hillsborough County. Which priorities do you think are misplaced?
Well, really, I think when we take a look at the real priorities that's going to move this county forward, and I think, for too long that the commission has been focused on socially divisive issues that have really divided the community as opposed to bring them together. So we really need to get back to the priorities and realign the priorities of government back with the priorities of the people.
Well, Brian Blair would probably say, if Brian Blair were here, but he's not because he turned down our invitation, by the way. I should point that out, that I did invite him to be here. I was very flexible with the schedule, gave him a number of different dates, and his people said, no thanks, we'll be unavailable for the foreseeable future. But he would probably say, if he were here, that some of those what you call wedge issues are important, sort of moral, foundational, community issues that are important for any leader in the county.
Correct. And, I first want to point out that I have a deep respect of people, especially when they have deep convictions and points of views that tie into their religious culture and their background. I have a lot of respect for them. But what we have to understand is that we live in a very diverse community here, and we represent a diverse population here. So we need to make sure that any type of rules, legislations that we put in place don't oppress or discriminate against any particular group of people.
Mm-hmm. And I will segue into that by pointing out that you're not running as a gay candidate, but you are a gay man, which doesn't necessarily imply that you're liberal or it doesn't imply anything else, except it does sort of suggest that you and Brian Blair may have some pretty fundamental differences. How do you approach that aspect that is certain to come up in the course of this campaign?
Well, what I tell people is that, who I love and who I share my life with will not distract me from focusing on the issues that are most important to this community. I've been in a long-term, committed, loving relationship for the last 8 years. And again, that's not going to distract me from really focusing on the issues that are going to move this community forward.
And again, those issues, according to your website, growth and development, transportation, environmental protection. I don't see any gay agenda in there.
I'm still trying to figure out what that is. We've been requesting that for a long time. I have no idea what that is.
What has been going on the county commission that really made you go, I gotta get in there?
Well, as I started looking at where we're at in this community as far as looking towards the future, by the year 2025, we're going to be the size of Atlanta, Georgia, and we take a look at issues, for instance, like transportation. We don't have a master transportation plan that's put together that's going to accommodate that type of growing population. As we're out on the campaign trail and as we're talking with residents and knocking on doors, one of the big issues we're talking about also is affordable living. So if we take a look at over the last 4 years, have we really, is it really more affordable or less affordable to live in our community here? And then also issues on how we balance growth with environmental issues to make sure that we're not destroying important resources.
Right. Now there's two other districts, District 2 and District 4, that are up for re-election in the next election, but you opted to go against Brian Blair for the county-wide seat. Was that your only option because of where you live, or was this a deliberate person that you're sort of targeting?
No, we're not targeting any particular individual. I live in actually District 2. But when we took a look at the major issues, what I really want to focus on are the longer-term, bigger picture issues. And so as a county-wide representative, I thought that would be the most appropriate choice for myself.
This is the county commission that banned recognition of any gay or lesbian rallies or events. You want to be a part of that club?
Actually, what I really believe, as I mentioned before, is that we represent a very diverse community, and we need to be respectful of differences that we have. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to change our point of view. That doesn't mean that we have to necessarily embrace the culture. But the key, Brendan, is we need to be respectful. And as a leader in the community, again, we represent a diverse culture. So, again, we can't let our personal prejudices or whatever that we have inside of us dictate how we create legislation or ordinances.
Large swaths of Hillsborough County would be what you would consider conservative, cultural conservatives. How do you run a campaign with a far-flung district like this, some parts of which are notoriously liberal, others are staunchly conservative?
Well, we've been, and actually I've been in some of the most conservative areas of Hillsborough County on the east side, and we have a very brief conversation when they ask about it. Again, it's not an integral part of my campaign, but they're not really so concerned of who I love and who I shared my life with. They're looking at more quality of life issues. And so when we're talking about issues around affordable living, there's some people, again, especially when we look at some of our seniors out there that they're actually considering moving out of the county. When we talk about, as far as bringing in young professionals here, you had a segment on your show that actually, when you mentioned that we're in the bottom 40 as far as a place where young professionals want to move to. So again, people aren't necessarily concerned, and I think they started to figure out also, Brendan, that this has been a strategy that's been used over the last 8 years. And I think when we take a look at going forward, people are starting to figure out that they've actually been duped. These are people that candidates have run on social wedge issues in the past, and people that have voted for those politicians who going forward that of a promise of a brighter future. When they look at where they're at today, they're looking at their quality of life, and they said it really hasn't improved. The
County Commission recently voted to sort of completely eliminate the Wetlands Division of the Environmental Protection Commission. That provoked an outcry among primarily environmental-minded folks. And so there was sort of a reconsideration and then a watered-down version of that where the Wetlands Division was sort of scaled back but still exists. How would you have voted on that? What did you think of the way that came down?
Well, I think it really raises questions in my mind, number one, of how the whole issue was handled. When you watch the initial meeting, Dr. Garrity was given 3 minutes to explain why the Wetlands Division should stay in place. So there's real questions in my mind, the whole motive behind getting rid of the Wetlands Division.
How would you deal with all the squabbling that goes on there? You see these personal attacks from commissioner to commissioner that we've talked about lately, particularly from Brian Blair directed at other members, Al Higginbotham and so on.
Well, there's probably going to be personality conflicts. Again, you would hope that they could handle that as grown adults would handle it, but again, in the heat of passion, in the heat of debate, sometimes the emotions carry into the floor.
All right. Kevin Beckner, good to meet you. You'll be the candidate for District 6 in the Hillsborough County Commission. Thanks for being on FlashPoint.
Thank you, Brendan.
A pleasure.
Appreciate it.
We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.